So hello everybody, welcome to this autumn equinox recording. So I'm going to go over some of the guidance that I've received together with some of the astrology, put it all together. This is just basically a tune in with spirit to see what kind of messages I've received over the last few hours. So the autumn equinox period this year is 21st to the 23rd of September. Some people believe it's on the 21st. For me, it's really when the seasons are changing over. So we're going to have the spring equinox down in the southern hemisphere. So if you're in the southern hemisphere, hello to you. You may feel that these messages are relevant to you as well as those of us, myself included, are up in the northern hemisphere. As always, as we say in the spirit world, is take what resonates and just leave the rest behind. And also, you'll have your own impressions and your own natural impulses. And I always guide people to trust those above anyone else. So, autumn equinox period, what is it? In a nutshell, it really is the change in the seasons, and we are now moving into autumn. There's definitely a shift in the weather where I am. I don't know if there is where you are today, but we've had quite a bit of rain and the temperature has definitely dropped. This also, with this, is definitely a precursor as a change in the energies coming. Some of you may feel it's a shift from external to internal. So the sun in the astrological wheel is moving from Virgo now into Libra, and as I am recording this message on the 22nd of September, because it just felt that this was a bit of a power day. This for me feels like the actual day of the equinox, and therefore I was guided to record this on the 22nd. So you may feel it as a shift from internal to external, external to internal. I think it really does depend on your own chart and what's going on in your own lives. I think as a world community, global community, it's really important that we embrace all the differences in how people see things in their perspectives, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. Because if we can be much more inquisitive and curious and willing to learn and see things from different vantage points, we'll understand that we're all seeing it correctly. We're just all having our own unique experiences. So astrologically wise, the sun is now shifting into Libra, probably be in Libra by the end of the day, no doubt. And we also have 6 planets in retrograde at the moment. So retrogrades, as we know, for those of you in my Facebook group that I talk about this regularly, is it's going over. We're getting a redo. We're getting a assembly, I should say, or a return to some area in our own lives where we get chance to readdress something. Or learn or reclaim something from the past. So the 6 planets in retrograde motion at the moment are Mercury. So we're actually going from Libra in the next few days. The planet of communications, Mercury, will actually be moving back into Virgo. It's currently in Libra at the moment. And the actual degrees it's in at the moment, it's at 1.3 degrees of Mercury going backwards. So when it reaches 0 point, it will then start moving back in 29 degrees and so forth into Virgo. I actually did a shorter video on this in the Facebook group. About what this was covering. So as it's funny, as the sun is moving forward, Mercury is actually moving back. So, and we also have as well a new moon in Libra, and that will be on the 25th of September. So there's a lot of activity in Libra at the moment, and that's at 2.48 degrees. So respectively 3 degrees of Libra. And that's at 21:45 hours, so 9:45 at night, and that's GMT timing. More on that later. I'll probably talk about that towards the end of this video. So as we're also in a Mercury retrograde, we've been called to readjust and look at that. So in Libra, the energies of Libra actually rule 7th house in astrology. So that would be like marriage, harmony, teamwork, sociability, being diplomatic. Sometimes Libra can be have a predilection to wanting to sit on the fence because it doesn't want to upset the apple cart. It wants to see everything balanced. But actually, I try not to use the word balance anymore because it's so generic. I don't think it's appropriate for everybody's personal situation, because what I might see as balance and what you may view as balance can be two totally different things based upon our experiences and also our belief systems, our value systems, and so forth. Libra's also healing codependency and refinement. So we started off in this placement, and then we're going right into this energy of Virgo. So we're readdressing relationships by going back into Virgo, and we're looking at where we need harmony in our lives, where have we come out of equilibrium within ourselves, and where we're being asked to readdress this is in the 6th house, which Virgo rules, which is health. It's our daily routines, it's healing, it's structure, it's orderliness, it's being organized, it's our work and our job, it's our physical health, diet and exercise. It's about trying to relax, being perfect. And the way that I see this really turning up is where we're being asked to embrace, where we're not being willing to accept our imperfection, and actually understanding that imperfection is part of the journey, because it's all really, if you think about it, it really is an illusion, because it's the ego's way of constantly trying to tell us we're not good enough. So those are really the basics of the astrology. So we're in this season of transition, this day being a very pivotal shift point of the equinox today. So for those of you moving into spring, you might feel it's the opposite, you might not. When I did the last equinox video, I noticed, I thought I was going to go into it doing a reading for the north and the southern hemispheres, and I was guided not to do that. So these are the messages that I received from Spirit regarding this time and what we're moving into collectively. So one of the messages I really got was about charging up, a bit like you plug your phone into a charger in the wall and the electricity powers the phone on, it puts you back online. Your cells need the same. They need this plus and minus, this polar charge, this push-pull. Your cells actually need energy to pull out toxins and also to receive nutrients and water, because actually the nutrients have metabolic processes together with removing the waste materials, and you need transporters to do that, whether that's your cells that eat up within the cell, there's your micro cells that then eat up the rubbish and transport it out safely, or you have water which moves all the the goodness into your cells and then takes the waste out. So it's all part of the process of being alive, isn't it? So when we think about this from a physical example, it's about being with like-minded people. It can be spiritually, mentally, emotionally. If you feel that you're on a spiritual path, it's definitely being part of a community where you're around like-minded people. And this is something that some of us have been doing for many years. We've found either groups online, or we have communities, or we've got places that we go to, whether it's healing centres, whether it's sports clubs, whether it's a dance community, whether it's our Tai Chi, Qigong class. For many people, it's their yoga community. It's where they go and they literally plug in themselves, because it balances, I shouldn't say that word when I don't really use it very much, but it plugs you back in. It fills up the charge in your tank. So the last especially 2 to 3 years, we've been experiencing this polar opposite of this charging up, which the narrative has been pushed. So, and this is the false narrative of separation and isolation. And this is almost like it's counteracting now, maybe, where energy needs to be plugged back in. So this is especially important for those that have been feeling out of sorts, where your natural inclination is to isolate as a way to recharge. And, you know, if you're a healer or you're in a caregiver capacity, this is there's definitely an appropriate necessity for physical, spiritual and emotional rejuvenation. And for many people, especially if they feel that they need the quiet and they need the calm, it can often be around not being with people. But what I really felt around this was that it's actually the opposite, is that sometimes being in the space of community with like-minded people, it fosters a atmosphere of connection without doing anything, without giving. It's a space where you can go in. It's like when you go to like a meditation group or you go into a healing center, the energy is so charged up in the space because of the fact of people being there and the intention that's either placed around or in the building. And that can be from healers or people that work, energy workers. It can be actually predominantly from the intention that's put into the land and the space, so that anybody that passes through just automatically receives healing. Is that this is about getting away from this intention that we have to do things alone. So for those of you that your way of operating, your natural inclination that you're used to, that you've got kind of quite embedded and it's become part of your like de facto way of handling things, is you're being guided to do the opposite now, because this is about getting yourself on point, on track, as connection is fueled by community. And actually it's interesting because an isolated cold cell in the body gets sick when it doesn't have it light, it doesn't have connection with other cells within its own community, when it doesn't get the right nutrients, it doesn't have the fuel, it doesn't have the hydration, it becomes sick, it gets withered, dehydrated, and it just cuts out, it dies. So you know, whether your community is based in a health and healing capacity, whether it is, as I said earlier, your yoga group, your martial arts club, dancing and singing with a choir, it's a feeling of togetherness. And what this is about is it's totally linked into connecting to the divine matrix of attuning yourself to your bliss, your happiness, and back to your heart, a heart-centeredness practice. So this is about giving yourself permission to experience joy, not through the channel of the mind. It's actually to just come offline from the mind and let your heart do the talking. And, you know, all of these activities might feel or sound like they are doing, but actually it's not even about that. It's about plugging into bliss and energy and counteracting a lot of these energies of the last 2 years, which have been the opposite of this for many people. And this a lot of the narrative that's been artificially instigated to pull us out of that. And at times, for many that are spiritually and intuitively connected to the divine, they felt like the outliers. So these are people like on the fringe, not really being accepted because they're not following the narrative and they don't fit in or relate to this 3D narrative of what we're told to do or assumed we will do, versus the divine truth of our own sovereign path, which funnily enough is all about the progression of community from a unity conscious focused path. And that means that you are a part of something, and a big part of unity is unity within. So everything always starts from within, doesn't it? And the thing is, when we often feel that blissed out state, which many people might think, what are you talking about? I haven't ever felt that. It might be that endorphin rush. These are things that are naturally available to all of us. They're part of that divine energy that is, it's actually free to all of us. You know, it doesn't take a lot to do, and a lot of it is slowing down, and it's going back and following our natural impulses, not reactive fight and flight programming and loops that unfortunately some people have got stuck in through no fault of their own. But actually the way that we often heal trauma is we don't process the traumatic incidences. It's actually inducing more trauma doing that. What we do is we build our capacity, so we fill up our space, our ability to feel and actually be in the moment. And actually what it does is it creates this container of space and healing that many of us are really crying out for, but sometimes we don't know how to actually articulate what it is that we're feeling, because maybe we weren't shown, maybe we weren't given the opportunity. We were modelled on a behaviour as a child that, you know, you don't talk about your feelings. Feelings equals weakness, which actually brings me on to something that came out through my cards, actually, was about this, a real shift in the masculine around this time as well, which I will mention. I think it's one of the last messages. The second area is a return to wisdom, and it cannot be found in the mind. That's where there's a lot of trickery, where we second guess ourselves, but it's in the soul. And it's a reawakening of this divine nature through accessing the wisdom of the soul. And this looks different to everybody, so that's why I won't go into the details of it, but it can be accessed through the previous message, which is going back and finding what your bliss is. And you don't do that by thinking your way through it. It's not one of those things that needs to be overcomplicated. It's a choice to say, I'm going to just do what I know makes me happy right now, and I'm going to prioritize it, and I'm going to put it as on my number one on my list, so to speak, of what I'm going to do next. Because it's one of those things, isn't it? When life gives you lemons, are you going to make lemonade, or are you going to let the lemons go off and say, oh, you know, it's just not what I want to do at the moment? You know, we do have to participate in life. And I feel like this is linked with this need to embrace our imperfections. So often when we're going through a crisis or we're wanting to attain something, we are often thinking and doing, and we forget that the essence of true manifestation is about learning how to tap into energy. And we often do that by slowing down. So, you know, this harnessing an attitude of gratitude, for instance, in the above. So we're searching for an answer or a solution to a problem. And it can involve a lot of thinking, like we think we've got to solve it through the mind or an outside source. And yes, often we may need the help and support of an expert, somebody that's walked the path before us. But prior to this, there is a way that we can use the power of language. And often we'll go into this, this storyline of, well, how can I solve this? I'm looking, my brain's online. It's almost like looking for opportunities, which is great. But instead, what we can do is we can actually have this attitude of gratitude where we're thankful for the lesson, even when we don't know what's going on and we're trying to figure out. It's about A lot of these things happen to us in life because we're ready. We're ready even though we don't believe that we have. How many times have we gone through something and afterwards it's been the making of us? So often this is just something that, I really heard about learning how to tap into the energy in a different way. And it's like, thank you for the lesson I'm learning through this experience. I'm willing to embrace it fully, and I'm open to receiving the next right steps and experience to heal and grow. That totally changes the energy to receptivity from resistance. Because when we use the words like, how can I solve this? It's much more like there's a big rock in front of me that I can't move. I've got like a mountain to climb. Whereas when we're in a place of gratitude, it's like saying, look, I'm here, I'm turning up. There's obviously, something that's happening in my life that I'm learning. And actually, it's a flow energy that comes with this attitude of gratitude. And it does take a level of mastery and acceptance at one's flaws in order to do this. And it's practice, because it's like saying, well, actually, I do know I will get through this, even though I don't know how it's going to come about. But I'm willing to see, I'm willing to learn. And the key to healing is to tap into this divine matrix of energy. It's open to us all. So this language, it really changes the energy flow from resistance to receptivity. And a lot of people will often be quite skeptical and often quite jaded, especially if they've just been battered by crisis after crisis. But the thing is, if we just go into it with our hearts and our minds open and just being willing to try, it's fascinating how the right people and the right opportunities turn up at the right time when we're just willing to learn and grow in a new way. Because often these crises and experiences turn up to ask us to open up. They're trying to crack us open in a new way, and help us to expand and often tap into the wisdom of the soul. So the other messages that I did get was around this. So there's a lot around second chakra work at this time. So this is very much to do with our desires, our sexual energy, our creativity, our ability to create a safe space and safe container for us to be creative, and actually to really tap into this divine matrix of energy that's out there to all of us. And you'll often see people and just think, how are they always able to, they make it look easy, but actually a lot of the time what it is they don't talk about all the steps that they've gone through and all the challenges that they've had to learn. And some of the challenges that they've gone through have been slowly breaking them down to trust, to be more receptive, to not always think that their way is the highway. So there's a lot of energy around this, but there's a lot of energy around this around the masculine. And, I really saw that, when I say divine masculine, divine feminine, is to do with the predominant energy that you hold, regardless of whether you are a man or a woman or how you relate. Whatever label you want to call whoever, that's up to you. But the feminine energy, I felt like the feminine energy has really, like the divine feminine has really exploded in her growth spurt over this last few years. And it has felt like, and it's not a competition, it really isn't, but we do live in a world that has really favoured an old masculine paradigm. And that doesn't mean that we go around blaming all men. It's just not the way to deal with it. But what it is it's almost like the way that the femininity and the feminine has been viewed, it's been inverted. It's never really been honoured socially out there in a way that it's where it's in its true power. It's either it's almost like in the old paradigm, the old world I like to call it, the feminine was a threat because the masculine power was coming from a wounded and actually fractured place, which is that, for instance, if you are confident and you are coming from an authentic place of power, you won't feel threatened by another person. So like if the masculine energy of the old world was coming from a very authentic, powerful place, it would have things like equal pay for women. It would have a complete understanding that if a woman chooses to go off and have a child, that does affect her career, and that there needs to be, allocation of resources for that. That motherhood is valued to a point where it shouldn't affect a woman's career. And I know that might sound a bit crazy to some people, but being a mother is, having a child is probably one of the most sacred acts of power that a woman can actually hold, just as much as it can be birthing her other babies, which aren't a physical child, but can be her business or her creative power, because it is creativity at its most, obvious manifestation. And so there's lots of different ways that this is shown up in our world, where we know that there isn't this equality of power, because the masculine and the feminine energies haven't really been seen in a way where they are really truly respected the way that they naturally, organically present. So there's still this kind of like power struggle going on at the moment, even to the point where it's like this energy around trying to I don't want to say the word promote, but it is what's coming to the fore for me, other ways to live at the expense of the feminine, and it's just not going to work, because actually the feminine is what's really needed to heal in the world, and actually it's the feminine that's really woke up the masculine in their healing. Because actually the way that the masculine, and we all have masculine areas where our divine masculine needs healing, because we all hold both these templates, guys, regardless of what body we're in. We all hold it. It's just that predominantly in our relationship to ourselves, and well, actually with other people, we will have a predominant blueprint, because you can't have two masculines and two feminines in a relationship. And again, it's about energy. It's nothing to do with who you are, because it's like a magnet. You repel and you, so like there's no yin and yang. There has to be a yin and yang energy in a relationship for it to come together in union. So there is this message around the feminine energy having to have had a lot of patience and around their journey to relationship. Now, again, this can be that within yourself, the journey to the divine feminine has felt easier. Not easier, it's come more natural. But the divine masculine area of your own healing has taken time, because of how society has taught us what it's supposed to look like. And especially right now, there's a big healing around this of what we are learning the divine masculine is. But also there's been a lot of anxiety around it because of our relationship to power, and understanding what our relationship to power is, not only within ourselves and how that balances out, and how our own inner divine masculine and divine feminine works, our templates within ourselves, because for everybody it will be different. For some people it might be their relationship to their father or their mother or their caregivers. It might be the lack of thereof, or it could be their relationship to money and their relationship to receiving help. So there is this element of healing around divine masculine at this time, which is really coming to the fore, and where there has previously been a lot of anxiety around this, not only within our own inner masculine and how we step out into to society, and that we're seen, how we are maybe judged or misjudged. There's a lot of healing around this at this time, and it has been a journey. And actually, I do see lots of soul contracts of masculines and feminines coming together, but those that have been in relationship for some time, because everybody's included here, is that there will be almost like a renegotiation. So if you think about all this energy in Libra does rule the area of marriage. Seventh house is also not only about commitments, long-term committed partnerships and business relationships, but actually it's also the house of our open enemies. So maybe this is something that we have had to look at this time in Mercury, where we've had to say, who is really on our team, and who is masquerading as somebody who is appearing to be in harmony with us, but actually going back into this Virgo energy, we're seeing that, maybe we have accessed our healing, and maybe we have expedited our healing because we've been willing to go within, and we've been willing to embrace this imperfections and this healing that's been needed within ourselves. And what that's doing is it's renegotiating our relationships, and it's clearing them out, because Virgo is the healer. And so it's all about restoring our health. It's restoring our routines. It's vibrant health. It's not just, like just feeling okay. And it's Virgo is very clear. It's a clearing energy. So it likes the sense of that orderliness. It actually rules the whole areas of digestion and assimilation in the body, and also the, the area of, like where we get rid of waste, so our bowel, our intestines, and also our solar plexus, so our area, the chakra of choice and power. So this makes sense why this element of relationship to power. And for those of you that have been alone, this message that I really felt around this was that, you have felt like, am I ever going to meet anybody? And it's because it's almost like this contract you had, this soul contract, was to deal with this relationship to self. And for some people, they have this commitment that they make before they come in, and they say, look, we're going to sort out our stuff. We're going to sort out our crap before we come together. And some of you have had to separate from partners because they don't want to do the work. So you've naturally come out of misalignment. But what I'm seeing with this is that there is journeys now to new soul contracts that are going to appear. And it is love-based. So these are relationships, and it might be that you're not interested in romance. So they could be friendships, they could be deep soul connections. Our soulmates are not always those that we love romantically. They can be children that we are close to. So, I have friends with kids, and we just have this understanding. Like, I've met one of my friends' kids, and we just have this bond. And, it's like aunties and uncles. They've got this bond with a child in their family. I've seen it with my own parents, where they just had a bond to one of the kids, or, in step families, and people get remarried, and they just have this bond with this, adult children. And it's, I've seen it with my own loved ones, and it can be that they've just got this soul recognition, that they just know each other, and it's like they've come in to help, or to just support, or to offer that little bit of love, and that other soul recognizes that. So these are energies around the equinox, guys. Again, take what resonates and leave the rest behind. Some of this might be relevant for you. There might be one thing that really, really jumps out. But I think this journey of patience that many people have been going through, there's almost like a substantiation here of understanding why it's been necessary. It's actually in the quiet, reflective periods that the deepest soul work is actually done. So I will leave it there. If you are new to my videos, I will be grateful if you could like and share, or even subscribe. That'd be wonderful. And I will be back with something new very soon, probably most likely the October reading. So sending you lots and lots of love for a really beautiful sacred time during this equinox, wherever you are in the world. Take care.